Hi guys, so today we're going to be setting up Openvoice version 2 and MeloTTS, and the reason why we're setting up MeloTTS alongside Openvoice version 2 is because for this version they used MeloTTS as the base speaker. So we're just going to set everything up, and the first thing you're going to notice is we have a modules folder, and this folder right here is where we're going to set up Openvoice and MeloTTS. We're going to clone the repos and we're going to install them. So, and we have this file and this and this. So make sure you already have Python installed, and for me I'm using Python 3.9 just in case you want to follow along and you want to do the same, and or you can use any version you want. So while installing Openvoice the version 1, I ran into some issues and I needed to set DTW Python to this particular version of the library. So I actually put it all in the requirements.txt for you, just in case you run into some issues. You can just run this first before you can start, but you actually need Pygame, because at the end of the day what we're going to do is we're going to play the audio using Pygame mixer. So if you want to follow along, you can just create this requirements.txt in your root directory, and you can just make sure your environment is actually active, and you can either use Conda or you can use virtual env. So I am actually using virtual env, so it's up to you, but make sure you have that set up because that it's recommended, but you can choose not to. But anyways, let's just get into the installation of the requirements. So you can just run this command as long as you're in your root directory and you created requirements.txt. But everything we're going to write here on this video, I'm going to drop the link to the repo in the description, so you can actually just follow along and later on glance through the code. But you can also follow along and write the code yourself. You can just write this file. It's a very short requirements file, and these other files are actually empty. So the main.py is the main Python file will run, and I'm going to put the voice service class here, so you can have these two created, and once you're actually done running these requirements, then we can actually get into the installation of Openvoice. So let's head over to your GitHub repo, and this is MyShell AI's Openvoice GitHub repo, and what we're going to do is we're going to clone it. So I'm going to right click on the modules directory because that's where I want MeloTTS and Openvoice to be cloned to. So opening integrated terminal, and we're going to do git clone. And while this is actually cloning, let's get MeloTTS GitHub link. So to get it, you can just easily, if you're following along, you can just go to MyShell AI, GitHub page, and once you get there, you're going to see MeloTTS is one of their pinned or their popular repositories. So once you're in MeloTTS, you can do the same thing we did here. So since we're still in the modules directory on our terminal, we can do the same thing, just git clone. And so I'm going to rename Openvoice. I do not like the camel case, so I'll just make it all lowercase. And since MeloTTS is done cloning, I'm going to do the same thing to MeloTTS. So to actually install Openvoice, what I'm going to do is pretty simple. I'm going to right click on Openvoice and open an integrated terminal. And before we actually install it, I'm going to go to the setup.py and I'm going to change this to Openvoice, and I'm going to run pip install -e. So it's installed, and we'll go over to MeloTTS and we'll right click, open an integrated terminal. Something I failed to do, as you can see, is install as MeloTTS. Something I always do is before you actually run the command for MeloTTS, you can just change the name to Melo, and let's run it again. So once you're done installing MeloTTS, the next thing we're going to do is go over to the Openvoice repo, and if you scroll down, you're going to see how to use please see usage for detailed instructions, and let's follow your instructions. And you're going to see Linux install, click on the v2, you're going to see Openvoice v2 here. So if you look on the install MeloTTS, you're going to see this is how they usually install MeloTTS, but I do not like going through that. For this video, I just want to do that so I can actually get to the checkpoint and paste it in. You're going to see what I'm talking about. Anyways, python-m unidic download. This is something you need to do after you're done installing MeloTTS. So you're going to copy this. You can go to your root directory, or you can do it anywhere, because at the end of the day, it's just going to go over to your cache, your PyCache. So you can just paste it and hit enter. But I've done all that, so mine is already downloaded. It's about 500 megabytes. It's nothing much. So once you're actually done running that, then we can actually go over to Openvoice documentation and get the checkpoints. So if you look under this Openvoice v2, you're going to see download the checkpoint from here. The moment you click this, it's going to download. It's going to download an archive, a zip file basically, and you're going to have to extract it to the checkpoint underscore v2 folder. I already have that downloaded, so I do not need to re-download it, so I'm going to cancel it. So if you're using a MacBook, all you have to do is double click on the archive and it's going to extract to checkpoint underscore v2, so you have no problem there. So I'm going to copy it right now. Since I have it, I'm going to copy it and paste it in my project. So you're going to see the folders in that directory. So I have actually pasted mine in, and as you can see, I pasted it in the Openvoice folder that's found in the models directory. Close this, you can see models directory, we have MeloTTS and we have Openvoice, and then in Openvoice I pasted a checkpoint underscore v2. So you can see we have two folders, base speakers and converter. Make sure this is what the two folders you actually see inside checkpoints underscore v2. So if you see here, you're going to see base speakers, and under base speakers you see another folder called SES, and under SES you're going to see all these path files for the different accents. So, and here you're going to see converter, and you're going to see these two files. So the next thing, we're going to get MeloTTS's checkpoint so we can actually get started. As you can see here, this is your face page, and so you're going to see MyShell AI Openvoice v2. As you can see, you can get the checkpoints from here, and you're going to see MeloTTS English v3. We won't be using this for this video. I'm just going to be using the MeloTTS English v2. You can also get for different languages: Japanese, Spanish, Chinese, Korean, French, and you can get the version 1, but I'm going to go for the version 2. So you're going to click here, and if you scroll down, you can see how they actually use it, and you see it has this extra language EN version 2, and it also have these different English accents. So for this video, you need to download the files from here. You click on files and versions, and you need these two files, checkpoint.path and config.json. So you're just going to click on the download icon you see here for the both of them, and once they are done downloading, you're going to copy them and you're going to create a checkpoints folder in MeloTTS, not in Openvoice, MeloTTS, because as you can see, this is for MeloTTS. So I have it, I do not need to download it, so I'm going to paste it in and show you the content. So since we actually have that, what we're going to do is go over to the documentation for Openvoice, and we're going to get it all set up. And if you followed my guide and you joined me to clone the Openvoice folder, you're going to see this demo part 3 notebook here under the Openvoice folder, and we're going to go over there because that's where the documentation on how to actually set up Openvoice version 2. So I'm going to copy this. So we're going to set it up in the voice. Let's close this and let's close this. We're going to set it up in the voice class. So let's import it. One more import we need is for MeloTTS, because we'll be setting up MeloTTS here also. So if we scroll down, we're going to see for MeloTTS. So let's set up the class. We're going to call it voice service. And we are going to define an init function. And so for the next step, we're going to go to initialization, and we'll do all that in the init function. You can choose, you can actually do it wherever you want, but I prefer to do it here. So we are going to create two more functions. One is Openvoice v2, and we're going to pass in self so we can actually access all this. So for now, I'll put in pass, and we're going to create another called MeloTTS. For MeloTTS, I'll be passing in text, and I'll also be passing in another parameter called standalone, and to be set to true. So the next thing we'll need is this. So let's paste it in Openvoice v2. And the last thing we'll be copying is this guy. So let's paste it down here and let's set it up properly. So since it's indented properly, so let's go over to the initialization function and let's just set everything up the way we want it. And I'm going to do a multi-line selection. So I can actually access it every other places. So let's finish this. So we're going to change the checkpoint converter path. As you can see, it's pointing to checkpoint underscore v2/converter, while ours is in modules and Openvoice. So let's just go to, we'll open Openvoice, and the checkpoints underscore v2 directory, you're going to see converter. So let's copy converter and we'll copy the relative path. That's what we're going to do. So let's paste that in. So as you can see now, it's pointing in the right direction. So let's go over to the Openvoice underscore v2 function. As you can see, the reference picker is actually pointing in the wrong direction. We actually need to point it to modules Openvoice before it goes to resources and the audio file. So the reference picker basically is the audio file of the voice you want to clone. So in case you have your own voice or whatever voice you want to clone, you can just paste it here, or you can paste it wherever in your project folder, and make sure the path is actually correct. But for this video, I'm going to be setting it up in the resources folder found in Openvoice. So if I go over to Openvoice, I'm going to see the resources folder. As you can see, example underscore reference.mp3. That's what this is supposed to be. That's what this is supposed to be pointing to. So I will go with Elon Musk voice, which is demo speaker.
There's the scientific method, which I very much believe in.
So I'll go with this voice, and to change this, I'm just going to right click, copy relative path, and I'm going to paste that in. So, and since we are actually trying out just English, we are going to take off these other languages. And for this, we're going to change en underscore newest to en underscore v2. Like I said, we'll be using v2 and the normal English. So if you look here, you're going to see tone color converter is not defined. and that's because we didn't actually define it in Openvoice underscore v2 function, and we defined it here, and you can see it here, and we also added an underscore. So since we're passing in self here, we're going to identify it by adding self, and we're going to add the underscore. So on this same line, you're going to see VAD equal to false. So let's change this to true. So this doesn't actually use whisper. And we're going to look at the output directory. As you can see, it's still trying to do the same thing. So let's same thing with device. So I'm going to do a multi-line, and you can follow along. I'm going to do this, and also this tone color converter here. I think that's all for this. And the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to paste in a play function, and this function is actually going to use Pygame Mixer to play the audio, whatever audio file we actually generate, or whatever audio file that's the clone of the reference speaker. So, and for that, I won't be going deep into that. I will just be pasting in the code because that's not what this video is for. So let me just paste in the code. So this is the code, play function, and I'm going to import Pygame. And you shouldn't have any problem importing Pygame if you installed the requirements like we did at the beginning. So let's just go ahead. So you do not need to actually uncomment this for now. We'll leave this like this so it doesn't delete the audio files it generates. The reason why is so you can actually listen to them over and over again and pick the language and the speaker key combo you actually want. And so the next thing we'll do is you're going to see this for loop, or you're going to see the second for loop, and here under this tone color converter, we are going to add self.play, and the path we're going to pass is the save path because that's the output directory. That's where all the outputs, all the cloned voices will actually be going to. So we're going to pass in save path. And just so everything is actually really unique, so you can also get the language apart from the speaker key, because if you look at the save path here, you see it's actually passing in the speaker key. But if it actually does this loop, if you look here, it's actually looping through 2 different languages and then looping through different speaker keys. So at the end of the day, what we want is for it to also append the language. If you look here, you're getting the language and the text from text. So the language, the text from text. So we want it to append the language. So at the end of the day, we can know the combo we want. Because if it does this loop between 2 languages, at the end of the day, it's going to overwrite the previous language with the new one. So that's what you actually have to take note of. So at the end of the day, we're going to add underscore. I'm going to add language. And so we can actually know which speaker is actually speaking, like what accent is actually speaking, if it's the British, if it's the Australian or the Indian. We are going to add a print statement here. I'm going to add speaker key. So another thing we're going to notice is the source underscore S here. You see it's actually pointing to checkpoint underscore v2 base speaker. It's pointing in the wrong direction. You need to point it in. You need to actually point it to the Openvoice directly before it can call checkpoint underscore v2 folder. So let's just copy the Openvoice directory as a relative path. Copy relative path and paste it here at the beginning, and you give it a /. So now it's actually pointing in the right direction, because if you don't do this, it's going to throw an error. And let's go over to main.py and let's import voice. let's import voice service from voice. And let's instantiate voice service. And let's access Openvoice from. So we do not need to pass anything into Openvoice underscore v2. It doesn't require text. So since we're actually done setting this up, we can actually call it here. We'll first instantiate the class and we'll access the method from the class object. So what we're going to do now is run it. You can actually run it by imputing python-m, then the name of the file. You do not need to add .py, but if you want to use .py, you do not need to actually use -m for the file name. So let's just do this, and fingers crossed everything works smoothly, and we're going to get an output folder on our root directory. As you can see, output underscore v2, everything will go in there. And if you look at what we did here, we print the speaker.
Did you ever hear a folk tale about a giant turtle? Did you ever hear a folk tale about a giant turtle? Did you ever hear a folk tale about a giant turtle? Did you ever hear a folk tale about a giant turtle? Did you ever hear a folk tale about a giant turtle? Did you ever hear a folk tale about a giant turtle? Did you ever hear a folk tale about a giant turtle? Did you ever hear a folk tale about a giant turtle? Did you ever hear a folk tale about a giant turtle? Did you ever hear a folk tale about a giant turtle?
So it's actually done running, and since it's actually done running, what we're going to do next is we'll create a standalone function for Openvoice, and this standalone function is going to accept the text. And the reason why I actually created this function first is so you can actually have access to these files. And the reason why we actually named it like this, we use this naming convention with the speaker key and the language appended to it, is so you can actually play them.
Did you ever hear a folk tale about a giant turtle?
And you can play each of them, and you can actually pick the one you love. Our next step, we're going to create a new function. I'm going to call it Openvoice. Since we are not using Openvoice version 1, this won't cause any problems. So, and it's going to take in a text, because the reason why this is the main function you are going to use with your AI. So all you need to do is take the text from the AI and put it into this function, and it will generate the audio and to play it automatically. So that's what we're doing. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this chunk by chunks. And one important part of this that we need from this is this. We'll copy it out and we're going to paste it here. Sorry, made a mistake. So let's paste this. We also need the save path. Sorry, we need all this. Paste it here. So another thing we absolutely need some, let's say, yeah, this guy. This is the guy we need. You need this guy, and you go to the Openvoice function and you paste this in here. So we're gonna edit this under this Openvoice function. We're gonna edit this. So the first thing we're gonna take off is the speaker key. If you go into the checkpoint underscore v2 folder, which is under Openvoice, under the modules folder, if you go under modules, click it, you click on Openvoice, the checkpoint underscore v2, you go to base speakers under the SES folder. You're going to see all this, and since what I'm going for is the Australian accent, so I'm going to be selecting en-au, and the language I'll be going for is this one, en_newest. And so we'll come here and we'll take this off, and we are going to impute en-au. And if you want the British, you can go with this. Depends on what you want. Depends on the one you actually picked. So it's up to you. You can also go with newest. You can go with newest, but it doesn't really matter. So what else? For the safe path, we do not need this. We do not need to append all this anymore. It's just going to go to output the wave, since it's just one file. Since it's just, we're not actually looping through anything, it's just going to generate one thing. And then, since this would actually be relying on MeloTTS to generate the source path, we are going to set up MeloTTS. The reason why I actually set up MeloTTS like this with text and standalone equal to true by default is so if the standalone is equal to true, it will then just automatically play the audio. So we can actually use MeloTTS alone, and if it's coming from Openvoice, I'm going to set standalone to false from here. So it will automatically return the source path, which we actually need here. So it's that simple. So let's move some stuff around and make MeloTTS work. So what we need for MeloTTS is simple. We need this. Definitely. We need the model, which is this guy. We need this guy, and we need to put it above this guy, and okay. And another thing we actually need, absolutely need, is the speed and the source path. It's actually important. Okay. And something else we need, I don't think we need anything else. I think everything is good. Not need anything else. So for the MeloTTS, it's pretty good. All we need to do is set the speaker ID, and the speaker ID is an integer. So to get the speaker ID, we're going to go over to Melo checkpoints. We're going to go to MeloTTS checkpoints, which is under modules, Melo checkpoints, and let's go there. There's a checkpoint, and we won't click on the checkpoint.path. Instead, we'll go to the config.json, and if you come here, you see speak to ID. That's the speaker ID basically. And if you, since I'm actually going for the Australian accent, I will be choosing 3, and you can go for whatever you want from here basically. So it's up to you. So I'll be going with 3. And for the language, since we're actually going with, newest. So I'm going to copy this and pass this in here. And let's see if there's anything else we need to configure. We've passed everything. And for the speed, I will just increase it to 1.1. And we're going to return something. And since standalone is true by default, it's going to automatically play. So all we need to do is call play, and what we're going to pass in is the source path. That's where it actually saves its own audio. And to call it, if standalone, else I wanted to return the source path. So if we come here, if we come to the Openvoice function, to get this source path, all we need to do is call self.MeloTTS, and we'll pass in the text we got from here. So what this is basically doing is sending a text into MeloTTS to generate the source path for the tone color converter, which would then clone the voice basically from the base speaker that was actually generated. So, and then at the end of the day, we're going to play it. So that's the most important thing. We're going to automatically play it. So now both functions can actually stand alone. So if you pass in text to MeloTTS without passing in the standalone equal to false, which we're going to pass in here, we're going to set standalone equal to false, and we'll set standalone equal to false for the Openvoice, so it will know that it should return the source path, because like we said, if standalone is false, return source path. So at the end of the day, we're all good. So we'll go back to main.py, and what we're going to do is I'm going to paste in the text would actually generate, and I'll paste a whole lot of stuff. I'm going to add execution time and all that. So let's just paste in there. As you can see, I actually commented out Openvoice underscore v2 since we do not need it anymore, since we've gotten all we want. We've gotten the language and the accent we want, on the speaker key we want, sorry. And so everything is good. And as you can see, we called VS Openvoice and we'll pass in our text. And all I'm doing here is printing Openvoice starting and then logging in start time and an end time, and at the end of the day we'll see Openvoice execution time. And we do the same thing for MeloTTS basically. So we'll actually know the execution time, and the reason why I want to do this is Openvoice basically does voice cloning while MeloTTS does simple text to speech. I want to see the difference in between it, because Openvoice still relies on MeloTTS, so basically it calls MeloTTS, so I want to see the time difference. So that's what I want to see. So all we're going to do now is run it. So fingers crossed everything will work fine.
Accessing alarm and interface settings. In this window, you can set up your customized greeting and alarm preferences. Hello, sir. What can I do for you today?
Accessing alarm and interface settings. In this window, you can set up your customized greeting and alarm preferences. Hello, sir. What can I do for you today?
As you can see, for Openvoice execution time is 18.7 seconds, and for the MeloTTS is 11. That's really not a lot. Like, the difference is not much, just around 7 or 6 point something seconds, which is not much because Openvoice is actually cloning more. So something we're going to do now is we are going to change the reference speaker. That's what we're going to do. And I brought in a new file basically, and you can paste it anywhere and you can call it here. As you can see, you can set the directory for the reference speaker, but for me, mine is in the resources folder. By default, it's in the resources folder and an Openvoice, and you can see the resources folder. And I copied a file here, jarvis.wave, and that's the file we're going to call here, and we'll see how well it actually clones it. And let's play it and see.
Accessing alarm and interface settings. In this window, you can set.
As you can see, it's not really great. The audio is really terrible, but let's see how it actually, if it can actually do something good with it. Let's see. And make sure you call the extension, the wave, make sure you get it right. If not, you're going to get an error. And let's run it again. Let's see.
Accessing alarm and interface settings. In this window, you can set up your customized greeting and alarm preferences. Hello, sir. What can I do for you today?
Accessing alarm and interface settings. In this window, you can set up your customized greeting and alarm preferences. Hello, sir. What can I do for you today?
This is really horrible, but let me try US and see if it's get it right. Let's run it again. change this to US en-us path so we're gonna see if it works.
Accessing alarm and interface settings. In this window, you can set up your customized greeting and alarm preferences. Hello, sir. What can I do for you today?
Accessing alarm and interface settings. In this window you can set up your customized greeting and alarm preferences. Hello sir, what can I do for you today?
As you can see, it's horrible. Let's try the Australian, which I actually wanted to go for at first. Let's try it. Let's hear how it actually sounds, if it actually sounds better than the rest, if it actually clones Jarvis. Because Jarvis is Paul Bethany and he is a British speaker, so.
Accessing alarm and interface settings. In this window, you can set up your customized greeting and alarm preferences. Hello, sir. What can I do for you today?
It's not bad.
Accessing alarm and interface settings. In this window you can set up your customized greeting and alarm preferences. Hello sir, what can I do for you today?
It's not bad actually. It's not bad actually because Paul Bettany is a British actor, and basically Australians and British, they have this kind of it's similar but not very different, but kind of similar in a way, the accent, but very different. But I think the AU is going to work because I do not want to use the British because British is actually really broad. Britain is actually really broad and a lot of them have different accents. So I'll go for this one, and you can go for whatever you want. So that's what this video is for, to help you figure that out. And so thank you for watching. That's it for this video. So make sure you actually like, share, subscribe, and I'm gonna see you next time.